Hey there, super friends. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Tuesday, November 28th, 2017. If you want to connect with us on social media, you can friend up our Last Point Gaming Facebook account. You can follow us on Twitter at Last Point Gaming. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Stranger Sparrow, or you can always reach out directly with an email to lastpointgaming@gmail.com. This one's going to take a little longer, I think, so I'm just going to kind of jump right in. Today I'm going to tell Joey's origin story. I've talked about things over the course of time that I've been doing this cast, mentioned things from when I was younger and everything. I think I may have done an episode early on, it's hard to remember, where I was very much more direct about how I became involved in the gaming community and everything. But I feel like in light of recent developments, I don't know, a couple pros have come out, and one of the reasons that they're so intimately involved in the things going on right now is because they talk about how they got involved with gaming to escape hardship elsewhere in their life. So, here goes. I was always this awkward kid. I'm not very coordinated. I have no rhythm. Not graceful. I had this obnoxious hair to take care of because it was really thick and really fine. So, it was always getting cut real short because it would knot up for no reason. So, there was a large period of my life where there was a lot of ambiguity over what my gender was. And, the fact of the matter is, it didn't matter if I was, dressed in my ballet gear, because, Mom thought that would help. It didn't. I was the worst ballerina ever. The amount of times I got mistaken for a little boy, and I kind of think it bugged my mom more than it bugged me, because she was always trying to find ways around this. For a while, we wouldn't cut my hair, we would perm it, and one, this looked awful, and two, it really didn't solve the tangling problem. So I got picked on a lot in school. Nobody likes to be low man on the totem pole. So when there's somebody that you spot that's lower than you, you will direct the ire in that direction and deflect it from yourself. And I was definitely on the bottom rung there. I wasn't the only one. I'm not trying to say my entire school focused all of its ire on just me. No, that's not how it is, but I was part of the defective crowd. I was into fantasy from a young age, and that, Anyway, people are awful, and they start it when they're young. So I went through a lot of hard times, and a lot of times when, I would say something like, man, the kids at school are so fucking mean to me, and that's why I don't want to go to school, and, started having, panic attacks, and the symptoms of the social anxieties really started to show through. Pretty much everybody had the same unanimous response, and that's, well, why don't you just try harder to fit in? Why do you have to be so different? I don't know. I just am. Now, as time has gone on, I've learned to fake shit a hell of a lot better. And, there's very few people that I'm real with, that it's not all a bunch of filtering and masks. Arguably, I am more raw and real talking to you all on this cast than I am with most of the people I interact with in my daily life. And a lot of that is because of defenses I've built up, from being told so long that it was my fault, that I needed to try harder. So I learned how to try harder, and I learned how to insulate myself from people. I can count on one hand the number of people that have any ability to do me any real harm at this point. You know, I can count on one hand the people that are close enough to me that they'd know how to leave a mark. Everybody else I keep so far pushed out that it doesn't matter. I may get annoyed to find out somebody at the shop's talking smack on me behind my back, but it doesn't really hurt because I left go of, you know, that wanting true acceptance a long time ago, and I will settle for fake acceptance and hold on to my illusions. So I discovered magic when, I don't know, I want to say I was like originally like 13, 14, well, maybe 12. And it was a friend, kind of. It's more of all of us at the bottom kind of banded together and formed our own little social circle. We didn't really like each other all that much, but hey, it was better than being alone, right? Anyway, her sister came into possession of cards. I don't know if she was playing or I don't know. But she decides she's just getting rid of them. So she hands it's like an old 5K box, about a quarter of the way full. And is like, oh, hey, look through, see if you guys want any. Well, we took out cards that, you know, had pretty art on them because we didn't know what the fuck they were. I'm gonna be completely honest here. I am like 95% certain I threw out a time walk. It stings a little bit. You know, because we went through and picked out the cards with the cool art, and we were like, well, do you want these back? And she's like, no, so we trashed them. So it was months and months later. Magic used to have TV commercials. And Magic was what actually kind of sucked me into the gaming community. Like, I'd played console games. We had an Atari growing up. Yeah. And then, like, you know, I was, I don't know, 9 or 10, I got an NES. My brother got a Sega Genesis maybe 2 years after they came out, when they finally hit a price drop. Because, man, them bitches were expensive, especially when you think back to this time. This was in the, like, mid-90s. All I remember is Mom playing Sonic and Weekend at Bernie's 2 had recently come out. This is all I have for time frame. Which, yeah, Weekend at Bernie's 2 was actually pretty terrible. First one was great. The second one was just awful. So, you know, yeah, I played video games, but yeah, I got these Magic cards. I used to collect Pogs. They were a big thing when I was a kid. I never actually learned how to play Pogs. I didn't really understand the concept, but I collected them. That's why this girl's sister offloaded her Magic cards to us. So anyway, so I see this TV commercial one day, and it's these two kids. Like, I distinctly remember it, but I cannot find it. I've searched YouTube. I've tried to find it, and I can find the old commercials where it was like the R&D department with like the goblins and crap. But no, it was like these two kids, and I will point out in this commercial both of them were male, because again, this was a different time. This is when it was just kind of commonly accepted that gamers were male, nerds were male. So, you know, they're throwing the cards, you know, all Gambit style, which Gambit, of course, was the most awesome of the X-Men. And, like, you know, it's, oh, I'm going to summon my grizzly bears. I don't remember what exact cards they were, but, like, as they throw the card out, like, the spell kind of comes to life, which is amazing graphic effects for the time. Because, again, now we're in the late-ish mid-90s. So I see this and I'm like, oh wow, I have some of those. This game looks so cool and I want to learn about it. And there was this kind of crappy game shop at our local mall called Legends and Heroes. So, we're at the mall one day and Dad's like, well, let's walk over to that game store and let's see if we can get you going here. Because Dad encouraged really any interest I had that tethered me to other people. Because I was very isolated. I was not very social. So something like a game that required other players, he was definitely all about, whatever he could do to help me kind of find my people, so to speak. So we go in, we talk to the guy, and he's like, wait like 6 weeks. This set called Portal's going to come out, and it's designed for new players, and you can get a Clash pack, which will come with 2 decks, like everything you need to get going. And I think you should really wait for that, because it's supposed to be new player friendly. So we wait, we go back, we get the Portal Clash pack, and we spend weeks banging our heads against this game, trying to figure out how to play the game from little tiny rule books that used to come with them. I don't even know if they still come with the intro decks, but there used to be, it was a little rule book, and like half of it was rules, and the other half was part of the lore and storyline. Like, I remember reading all about Geralt, who was the captain of the Weatherlight. So yeah, we beat our heads against this for a while, and God love him, he put in a real good effort. But, we're both getting frustrated. We don't know what the hell's going on. So he's finally like, he breaks down, and he's like, look, this isn't working. We got to find you somebody to teach you how to play. But Dad didn't really have an interest in learning. Like, this was not something that appealed to him. He looked at this as, this is way more complicated than any goddamn card game has any right to be. So, that kind of falls to the wayside for a short time. In this time, I've reached the end of junior high, and it comes time that I'm going to start moving on to high school. And I saw an opportunity to flee these people who had made my life miserable for 8 fucking years. And instead of going to my, regular school district's high school, going out to the Dauphin County Tech School. And you believe me, I jumped on that fucking chance. I wanted away from these people. That's kind of the problem when you live in the same house that your parents brought you home from the hospital to after you were born, is you never really get away from that same peer group. So as soon as you're established as the scapegoat, you will always be. Going out to tech was kind of a chance to break away from all that. Fortunately, my older brother also went there. He was a senior the year I was a freshman, and he's, he has got the social graces that I have had to spend a lot of time learning how to fake, how to emulate, because it's just not intuitive to me. He was the popular guy, and, he was tall and skinny and, good-looking guy by teenage standards, I guess. Feels weird to talk about him like that, but, he was the guy I heard girls talking about in the bathroom, And here I was, awkward and not pretty. I hadn't really hit development yet, or finished. I was midway through the whole puberty process. It was a goddamn mess. So back at tech, our technical school works differently from what I've heard most of them do. Dude, what is it with that fucking Wendy's? Nobody can figure out how that entrance works. It's every day. I was listening to Old Cast today, and it's every day right around this section. I'm like, why do you not know how to turn right? Anyway, I went out to tech all day. On 1 week, I had academic classes all day for the week, and then the next week I was in shop, and it switched back and forth. And back then, and I hear this has changed, which is a real shame, because I wouldn't have ended up where I did if it weren't for the exploratory program, where you spent 2.5 days in each shop to get a feel for like what they did there. And you had an exploratory group you went through each shop with. And I mean, to the credit of mine, at least there was one kid that was, you know, less, he was slightly more graceful, socially speaking, than I was, but not by a large margin. So, you know, at least he was kind of nice to me. But that's not how stop signs work. You dip. Like, what is wrong? Whatever. Just move right along. So anyway, you know, we toured the shops. We hit the nerd shop. Data processing is what it was then. It later became information systems technology, and I don't even know what the hell it is now. And I was like, wow, this is, you know, really neat. And this is how I ended up in IT as well. A lot about my life changed when I went to the Dauphin County Tech School. And, like, my exploratory group was giving me shit about something, and, like, one of the guys in the shop was like, why are you all so mean to her? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And it's when it occurred to me, this was the shop of the nerds. Like, they had formed their own elite group, and you see it actually with geeks, nerds, gamers, whatever, where instead of allowing people to make them feel bad about it, they're like, no, this isn't like the pit where you've all relegated us to. This is our exclusive club, and you're not fucking smart enough to get it. So, get out of here. So, like, before I even joined the shop, somebody in there stood up for me, and it was like the first time. It was amazing. But also working with code was, you know, fascinating. We coded crappy HTML pages, because back then, like, CSS wasn't a thing. You formatted your website using tables, which is now, like, the worst thing ever. Tables are for data only. Okay, dude. Even though you're using the turning lane not what it's intended for, fine. So, you know, cut to the end of the exploratory program. You spend like half the year going through and touring all the shops. Then you get to pick one. I picked data processing. Now, I was one of, I want to say, 3 girls in the shop at the time. Maybe 4. Only one of them was on the same week as me, but she was on co-op, where she only came to school like half days and then went and worked. And, you know, so I was kind of alone there, but these guys were, you know, relatively nice to me. So shortly after I joined the shop, you know, free periods from 2 to 2:48 every day, and they're in the theory room, and I'm just kind of wandering around, and I noticed they're playing Magic, and I'm like, oh, I have some of those, I don't know how to play. Like, my dad and I tried to figure it out, didn't go well. And they're like, oh, cool, well, you know, bring them in, and we'll, you know, play. We'll teach you how, and you can play with us. And so that's how I got into Magic. Yes, a bunch of guys taught me. No, I wasn't dating any of them or anything like that. They were just my buddies from school. So, you know, I go throughout high school, I bond with these people, I keep playing throughout high school. I never really discovered an actual LGS. I just played with the same shitty deck I had built, because we didn't really play format specific or anything. Elves and Angels, and if 60 cards was good, 90 must be fan-frickin-tastic. 4 of each circle of protection, which meant, yes, I had a full 28. Because there was one for each of the 5 colors. There was COP Artifact and COP Shroud. Not Shroud. What was Shadow? That's what it was. I remember banding. I remember flanking. So fast forward a couple years, I graduate high school, and my life's kind of a mess. I'm firmly on the path of self-destruction due to a lot of internalized things. And through an odd set of random happenstance, I discovered the guild. And I joined a Vampire the Masquerade live-action role-playing game because one of the things I had done with the guys from shop is played in a Vampire the Masquerade campaign with them and like learned about role-playing. And yeah, role-playing, I like that more than Magic, because then like I legit got to be just somebody else, and my characters are always like real high social stats, medium on combat. Unfortunately, you got to sacrifice somewhere, so the int takes a hit there. Yeah, I loved it. So then it's like, oh, well, there's this live action role playing. I'm like, that sounds great. That is not great. This is an odd group I played with. Some of them were all right, and others, yeah. People who have a difficulty separating who they are from who their character is. So I start out in this role-playing group, get to know some of the regulars at the shop, get to know OG Boss, who, you know, was a great presence in my life when I really needed it. And we were pretty good friends. Played Magic again for a little bit right around Scourge. Like, I helped open packs to build the Scourge set, and I was like, oh man, nostalgia, I miss Magic. So I bought up some cards, and I played for a bit, and then promptly dipped back out of it. I did play L5R for a while. I played Warhammer 40k for a hot minute, and then discovered that really equates to playing 6-hour games of goddamn Yahtzee. Gross. I don't have the attention span for it. It is actually a much more engaging game than that. It's like a tactical war game. But what it boiled down to, my limited attention span, was 6-hour game of Yahtzee, and I couldn't do that. Played Mordheim for a little bit, which was more scenario campaign based. So I could handle that because it was like, you know, an hour or two playing. What else did I play? I played the Lord of the Rings card game for the hot minute. That was a thing. Was an outrider for the Game of Thrones card game. I still have my Night's Watch t-shirt. Still, like, stayed involved with role-playing groups. Never really got into D&D. Had some bad experiences there. But, you know, this became my community. It was like I'd suddenly found the place I'd been looking for. You know, people who were maybe not like me, but also, you know, as distant from quote-unquote normal people as I was. So, like, we had that common frame of reference. There's not a single gamer I've ever met that once you get to know them, you don't find that they're broken in some way, you know? And I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm not saying that happy-go-lucky people who happen to enjoy gaming don't exist. It's just, it does appeal to people looking to escape a lot. There's a lot of appeal in just not having to care about bills that need paid or kids that need fed, and, you know, just for a couple hours. So that's how I got into gaming. Of these people on one hand I can count that are truly close to me, I met all of them through gaming. Husband, Lucifer, was a friend of mine from high school. He wasn't in my shop. We kind of knew each other, ran in similar circles until, like, I want to say it was like my junior year, that a good friend of his started dating a good friend of mine, so we ended up spending a lot of time together. Well, him and I ended up working at the Eaton Park together. He was a cook, I was a server, and we worked the night shift together a lot. And one night, you know, a friend of mine who worked at FedEx as like a truck loader on the overnights was coming in to meet me for breakfast after my shift, and husband was coming in to meet him after his shift for breakfast. So we decided to all sit together, and that's how I met husband. And I happened to be wearing my Vampire the Masquerade t-shirt. So husband, talks about how he's going to be starting this role-playing campaign, this vampire campaign, and, I should totally come play in it. And that's how I got to know him. And that's how we ended up together. The Epidemic was a frequent customer at Eaton Park. And his BFF, Grizzly, was a really frequent customer. And Grizzly and I had started chatting because, he overheard me talking to somebody about the guild one day and was like, oh my god, you're a gamer. And so that's how I got connected with the Epidemic. And that man is still my best friend in the world. Dodger worked for the shop. Scathe was dating and then later engaged to, a friend of mine that I kept in touch with from high school. They were kind of gamers. But she was going to school down in Florida and he was living down there with her. So when they'd come up to visit for the holidays, he'd go to F&M with me. And at first I thought he just wanted somebody to give him the lay of the land because he wasn't from this area. And, kind of go introduce him around the shop. And it took me, 2 years to realize that we went to play in F&M when they came to visit because he liked me. And, he liked being friends with me. And, he knew I wasn't terribly comfortable at the clubhouse. Mostly because one of her husband's ex-girlfriends was part of that friend group and she never quite got over things. I also noticed that I'm a different person based on what environment I'm in. And he liked Gamer Joey better. And we became really good friends. That's about it. It's those four. The captain, he's my buddy. Rockstar, Goyf Bolus, Boss 2. OG Boss and I are still in touch, but, we're not as close as we once were. Our lives have kind of gotten in the way. But these people, they're my buddies, and I, chit-chat with them and whatever, but none of them has the power to really do any actual damage to me because I don't allow it, because I keep everybody so pushed out. These are defense mechanisms I built up from, years of just having the emotional shit kicked out of me in school. And, the gaming community was this bright, happy, shiny place where at least these defenses aren't tested very hard. I have to remind myself to kind of keep that distance when I start finding myself oversharing a lot with Rockstar, actually. I don't know, something about him that's inviting. Dodger, jeez, that poor kid. I don't know, there was just something about him that I just wanted to tell him my life story all the time. But, this community saved my life. And that's why, I am saddened to see somebody pushed out of it. And I think that maybe some of the reason that I don't, I'm somebody said some mean things in a YouTube video, really, how bad is it? Is because I have built all these defenses. I've insulated myself from the world. Aside from this handful of people, I'm kind of an island. And I think I have to remember that not everybody's like that. That to some people, some stranger on the internet saying awful things to them is really hurtful. I get involved in YouTube comment sections from time to time, and people give me shit, and they're like, yeah, you're a fucking idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, whatever, dude. Whatever. It doesn't get to me, but some people haven't been hardened by the world the way I have, I guess. And I think we all need to be more observant of that, even in our own actions. I talked about how Christine Sprinkle has me blocked, has my personal account blocked on Twitter. And it's because I got involved in an argument and I wanted to win the argument and I wasn't willing to back down and take a step back and realize that, this involved actual people. And it wasn't about winning an argument. And I said something that I'm still not proud of. I issued a retraction and everything, but, once the words are out, they're out. Wasn't like super horrible, awful, I don't think, but it definitely wasn't kind. And I've got to work to overcome that. That's kind of my albatross around my neck. For reference, see The Mariner's Tale. Like, my reminder that when I'm interacting with these people online, they are real human beings. And I think we all need to keep that in mind a little more, that it's all about threshold. Not everybody has the same threshold. That being said, I'm sure you could tell when it got suddenly kind of quiet, and that's when I parked in my driveway. So I got to wrap this up or people are going to wonder what's going on. As always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and I appreciate all of you. And feel free to share your thoughts, questions, comments, whatever with me through any of our social media outlets or my email and everything. But yeah, that's all I got for today. I'll talk to you all tomorrow.